Okay, here we are, and welcome everybody to Wine Around the World. It's a gorgeous spring afternoon. Why is the wind still blowing in Kansas like it is? It's really blasting out there, but it's a beautiful day. And tonight, Steve is going to take us to a trip to South Africa to hear about some wonderful wines. And we want to always remember to thank Capital Federal for funds that support our retroactive activities, and also Sharon and David Katzman and their wonderful fund that they've established for the library. And, I was thinking Africa and wines, and it seemed to me sort of to be incongruous till I realized South Africa is real far away from the equator, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
It is,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
I know.
I mean, it's yeah. Well, we'll talk about those
I,
issues. Yeah.
I figured that would come
Yeah.
up, but I guess I don't associate Africa in my brain with wine, but
No.
yet there's a lot of wonderful wine that comes from there. So I'm going to mute me and anybody else who's here. Welcome, everyone. Looks like some people are already snacking. That's excellent. And
Good.
we're ready to hear all about the wonderful wines you have for us.
All right. So let's see if we can
Hurry up.
get.
Something to drink.
There we go. Is everybody seeing this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good, good. All right. Let me. There we go. Everybody see the map?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, excellent. Okay. So South Africa is a place very near and dear to my heart. My uncle worked for the now defunct USAID, and
Because
part of his territory involved South Africa, Botswana, Ethiopia. And when he retired, he knew some people living in Cape Town who uh, set up a trip for him. And later on, for my parents' anniversary, they took us there. This would have been like 2014, maybe. And we really, really fell in love with the people, the place, the wine, the food, just a thorough, I mean, the natural scenery, the animals, it just goes on and on. But wine is something that has actually, for being the southern tip of Africa, wine has been here for a fat minute. The first plantings, recorded plantings, were in the 1650s, when the Dutch East India Company decided that Cape Town, or pretty close, there's an area just a little bit south of Cape Town called Constantia. That's where the first governor of South Africa lived, but the Dutch East India Company essentially sponsored all of that. But um, they immediately planted grapes because actually the East India Company, it really, I mean, they were Dutch. The Dutch definitely like wine, but more so they needed to prevent scurvy. So they planted grapes, and that continued. I think it was around 1580, 1680, sorry. 1650 is when they arrived. 1680. Um, French Protestants, the Huguenots were fleeing France due to persecution. They came to South Africa and brought with them more grape growing knowledge. So, the Dutch kind of got everything going. The French kind of continued it. And for the most part, the quality wine, I mean, it was there were definitely some areas. I mean, for example, in the region of Constantia, again, maybe a 20-minute drive south of Cape Town. This area produces to this day a dessert wine that uh, Charles Dickens wrote about, and rumor has it that the last wine that Napoleon requested when he was in exile before he died was a dessert wine from Constantia. So there was definitely quality wine being made, but for the most part, it was fairly large production bulk wine, really just for serving the masses, um, preventing scurvy. But it really wasn't it was more quantity over quality. But the area was very hospitable. I mean, generally speaking, wine likes to grow near water. And of course, you've got fairly cool, very cool oceans surrounding them. So you've got elevation with mountains. The continent is essentially crumbling into the ocean. And so it really has I mean, it has complex soil. It had a good climate. And so wine actually did pretty well there. Um, the the first wine that we'll taste, and we'll kind of bounce around because there are a lot of different topics. The first wine that we'll taste is Chenin Blanc, and Chenin was a grape that probably came by way of the French Huguenots, because I mean, it has French origins. For a long time, it was in Dutch, or I think it's Dutch and not Afrikaans, but in Dutch it was Steen, Steen, and it was assumed that maybe that was a native grape. It most certainly isn't. It is Chenin Blanc, but in South Africa today, uh, Chenin Blanc or Steen is kind of the signature white varietal in their wine portfolio, and their portfolio is fairly extensive because they do have a wide array of land to work with. So let me see, there we go. So if you go to so you see Cape Town on the left here, go a little bit south, you get to Constantia. There's a bay there, and we'll talk more about it, called False Bay. But if you continue down the coastline, there's an area called Walker Bay. And Walker Bay is very famous for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Really, really high quality Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And if you're at all a fan of Shark Week on Discovery, the famed Seal Island. It's actually two islands, but where the great whites migrate, although unfortunately not in abundance lately. They've discovered that orca killer whales are actually devouring the population of great whites. But the great whites would migrate down both coasts of Africa and feed on the Cape fur seals. But that's kind of Walker Bay. That's its claim to fame. But so within this fairly small area, you've got a lot of diversity in climate. Where, say, Cabernet wants to grow is not necessarily where Chardonnay and Pinot Noir want to grow. So this gives them a lot of tools, a lot of arrows in the quiver. Let's see what else to say about this. So the two regions, and we'll bounce back and forth on the maps, but the two regions we're going to taste today are Swartland on the left side of your screen, and then Stellenbosch, which is actually right above False Bay, down kind of, well, in the orange section at the bottom. So before we head off, we'll start with Cape Town. Spectacularly beautiful place. Lots of diversity within the city. You have areas that are both spectacularly naturally beautiful, very luxurious, and as well as the townships, which are actually quite beautiful, and definitely, if you're in South Africa, I mean in Cape Town, definitely you definitely want to do a guided tour, but do a guided tour of the townships. There's a township called Guguletu that's absolutely beautiful, and the people are just marvelous. You can kind of see off to the right, I've got my view blocked by our windows here, but the World Cup soccer stadium sits right to the far right of the screen. Interestingly, a local architect, Craig Penzler. Some of you may know the Penzlers, but Craig was one of the architects, a part of the architecture team responsible for the World Cup stadium. So even a local connection to this faraway place. Table Mountain in the background, beautiful place to. The hikes are pretty strenuous, and unfortunately, there's sort of been a little rash of non-violent, but being liberated of your possessions while you were hiking up Table Mountain. So I would recommend the cable car that connects you to the top, at least for the while, or again, go with a guide. So this is the Victoria and Alfred waterfront, beautiful harbor, high-end hotels, just amazing restaurants, spectacular restaurants. Europe has enticed a lot of their best chefs to come to Cape Town, particularly because you have the bounties of the ocean, the bounties of the farmlands. There's really nothing you can't get in the most pristine, best quality in this town. So lots and lots of crazy good eating. In fact, at one time, the one of the 50 the number one best restaurant in the world rather was located in Cape Town a number of years ago, a restaurant called the Test Kitchen. The Beaucap neighborhood. This was a neighborhood that was originally settled. It was a segregationist neighborhood, but primarily settled by Malay people of ancestry, Malay ancestry, Muslim population, but it's sort of a tourist trap. But I mean, it's a beautiful neighborhood. It's all of the buildings are very colorful. And of course, this is actually from, yeah, that's Guguletu. It's kind of a weird thing to see people living essentially in construction debris, but with satellite dishes and the background of spectacular mountains, and in the background, it's a weird kind of juxtaposition, but it has its own beauty. All right, so let's start with, open my wine here. We're going to start with Storm Point Chenin Blanc. So the Chenin Blanc comes from Swartland, up at the top there, and Swartland is a Dutch word, and it unfortunately it sounds awful. It's a Dutch word that means black land. It was not an area where populations were segregated or banished. There happens to be a bush called the rhinoceros bush that turns black when it rains, and so it does make the land black. So, but it's an area. It's fairly arid. Certainly more arid than the south. There's some mountains that run along the coast that kind of provide a rain, create a rain shadow. But this is an area that they've been planting grapes for a very, very long time. Primarily because of this, primarily a lot of the vines are not only old but bush trained. So I think I have maybe the next slide. So this is Swartland. We'll look at pictures of Stellenbosch. It definitely doesn't have it definitely has a more arid feel than further south. But this area, like I said, it's known for really old vines, particularly old vine Chenin. This is a bush trained. I want to say this vine is maybe 90 years old. But when a vine ages, the quality of the tonnage of the grapes, the amount of grapes that the vine produces drops, but as it drops, the quality of that fruit climbs. And so we find today a lot of really good, I mean, I think, this bottle of Chenin is maybe $15, and you just don't find a lot of wine of that quality for $15. I mean, it really, nature always does the best work, but in many cases it's just not possible to get nature uh to work for $15. But in this area it most certainly does. Let me see, I think, oh no, too far. So we'll go back. There we go. So let's taste this wine. So again, it's a grape that originated in that came from southern France. Actually, I'm sorry, came from the Loire Valley in northern France and migrated further south. But Chenin, um, it definitely has French origins. But you've got with this arid climate, you don't have issues of mold and mildew, which grapes, they grow in those nice tight clusters, and there is the potential for rot. So again, nature does its best work when it can do it, and you've got, you can see in the background these mountains, lots of granite, just kind of crumbling apart. And so the soil is very well drained, um, but it also retains water where the roots need it. You have nice diurnal temperature, warm during the daytime, but then cool air kind of washes off the hills and the mountains, and it cools it down. So really, nature's giving this everything it wants. Chenin is a cool grape because it does a lot of different things. It has, I mean, like this example, real bright acidity, kind of apple pear, um, maybe some Asian pear even, but bright acid. Not a real, like, I mean, a medium bodied texture, or maybe light plus body rather. Good texture, silky texture. But Chenin has the ability, it can be done as this was done in stainless steel, so no oak aging, no exposure to wood. It can be barrel aged in barrel, and where it creates a fuller bodied wine, with a little more texture, a little creamier. It can be made, they're doing a lot with, we've talked about this in the past, orange wine or extended skin contact wine. So they'll leave rather than, I mean, this wine, you can tell by the color, didn't spend a ton of time with the skins. The longer the skins stay in contact, the more really orange colors come out. So you can, but Chenin does very well in making really delicious, fruit driven. Some of them, we've talked about orange wine in the past. There are a lot that not a huge fan of, but I really do like a lot of the orange wine based, Chenin based wines from South Africa. And then there are even sparkling wines, so you can pick it a little earlier where you have a higher level of acidity, and then basically finish it like you would champagne. And so it does that. And then lastly, and we don't see a ton of this from this particular region. We see a lot more coming from the Loire Valley in France, but it makes beautiful dessert wine. So when the grapes are they have to achieve really perfect ripeness. They can't be overripe, underripe, showing rot. Uh, Although there is a style that does show rot, but for the most part, it has to be a perfect season. And it's fairly costly. I mean, just because it requires a lot of fruit to make these wines, and but So Chenin has this ability though to really from bubbles to dessert wine, really cover every base. But yeah, as I said, this one is stainless steel, real bright expression, but the concentration of the fruit, would suggest that the vines do have a little age on them. Yeah. A great wine, charcuterie, of course. But tangy cheeses, goat cheese, anything that has a little zing to it. Shannon loves loves pork, lighter proteins. Certainly, being close to the water, a nice piece of grilled fish or pan roasted fish is quite nice with this wine. But yeah, so Shannon, this is an example of South Africa's signature white varietal. Any thoughts or questions on this guy?
Someone just remarked it pairs well with pizza too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I mean it's got bright acid and good fruit. So it's gonna do a lot of different things. I mean do well with a lot of different things. Very nice. Any other questions on this or thoughts?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat.
Well, then let's move on to our second tasting. So we talked before Swartland in the north. Now we're in Stellenbosch. And this it's hard to really capture in photos the the beauty of this area. I mean, it really is. But being closer to Cape Town, it's about maybe an hour and 15 minutes drive from Cape Town. Uh, still close enough. A lot of Dutch influence you can see in the architecture. It really retains its kind of Dutch heritage. Um, this is really the farmland. They certainly grow grapes here, but they grow a lot of produce. There's a lot of grazing. So I mean, this is a significant farm region for the area. But you've got these beautiful mountains in the background, again, creating those microclimates that just kind of create these little pockets that over time get discovered, and it's like, well, for this grape, this pocket is just perfect. But there's so much variation that sometimes those pockets are kind of hard to find. But when they do, they're prized. So switch here. So this is an interesting story. So the wine that we're going to taste today, the red wine, is a grape called Cinsault. And Cinsault came, also a French grape, came to South Africa around the same time. And it was really, I mean, and Chenin in many respects was the same. Really a kind of a workhorse grape. It really was just, in France, Cinsault is a blending grape. Often shows up with grapes like Syrah or Grenache in the south, in the say the Rhone Valley or the Languedoc-Roussillon. But Cinsault is one that's for a long time, again, was a blending grape. And then in 1925, a professor of enology this is the University of Stellenbosch, a professor of enology successfully crossed Cinsault with Pinot Noir. And the idea was if we could take kind of the elegance and the fruit of Pinot and give it a little more durability with Cinsault. And so the University of Stellenbosch professor there was responsible for creating a grape that's called Pinotage. And Pinotage actually it is it I have I maybe it's like orange wine. Their Pinotage can both be very good or not or very not good. There is a and I've tried to kind of figure this out for a long time because there's a profile that shows up in some South African wines that sort of unfortunately is sort of reminiscent of burning rubber. Um, we call it tire fire, and it's I mean it's really horrific given South Africa's history that this is an aroma that comes out. But I've talked to scientists and enologists and master somms that I've known, and you know, why is this? And there is a likelihood that areas that have not, you know, during apartheid, the South Africa was very isolated. They could not get they could not work with international universities on, you know, if they were not calling up Bordeaux or UC Davis and getting cuttings to replant in their vineyards. And so the cultivars that they were using were probably not the best. And when apartheid was finally abolished, there was a flood of wine to the market because South Africa was very interested in getting their wine to market. And Pinotage was one of the leaders. And I would say at that time, 4 out of 5 wines, I mean, you'd smell the wine and it really would not make you want to drink it. I mean, it smelled it unfortunately it smelled like burning rubber. And so, you know, people kind of one of the critiques was, well, that must be the Sanso in the wine. And because wine, I mean, Sanso can be sort of rustic in a way. Um, but it really the best reasoning that I have come up with is that it was simply a lack of good cultivars that was creating this. But so I unfortunately in my early career I developed not a great love of Pinotage. I've since, however, had many really great examples, and they do. I mean, it has kind of the silky texture of Pinot Noir, and but the kind of the brightness, a little more tannic structure, and a little more. We would call it rusticity because I mean, when Pinotage, it's not a very. I mean, it's not a completely fruit pure wine. There's a little earthiness to it, and in a good way. But yeah, Sanso. So Sanso was really the kind of the driver of that, and again that all took place in 1925 at the University of Stellenbosch. Um, I guess one other thing before we get to this. So this is kind of a trip. Maybe you already know this. So there are six, yes, 6 floral kingdoms in the world. So all of the plants that exist in the world fall into 6 different kingdoms. And you can see North America, most of Europe falls into one floral kingdom. You've got South America, you've got Asia, you've got Australia, you've got Antarctica. But right at the tip of South Africa is the Kapensik Kingdom, which is its own floral kingdom. So the areas, and this would not include Swartland. This would be further south. This would include Stellenbosch. But the diversity of plants in this area is so crazy that it is its own floral kingdom. And as such, I'm trying to see whether see that, but this a lot of the vineyards, because of their proximity to the floral kingdom, are required to be not only organic but really sensitive about how they farm, because it is a very sensitive area. There's uh, definitely people who are. I mean, I know of one winery. They actually, I mean, on their own accord, took out about 1,000 acres and rewild them because they believed too much of the surrounding nature had been impacted by their own vineyards. So they removed them and they let it go back and um, they it's an interesting winery. They also play Baroque music in the vineyard, so they're kind of out there, um, but definitely concerned about where they're producing their wine. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I mean this is where these wines are coming from, which is just to me it just blows my mind. I mean, like you see how much one floral kingdom can cover and how small another. I mean, this is the tiniest floral kingdom of the six. All right. So, Sanso, this is the actual vineyard for this Craven. Let me open my bottle. Um, this is the vineyard. They are fairly old. I want to say 60-year-old bush vine. So, I mean, bush trained rather. So, bush training is, it's a fairly um, it's a fairly traditional way of growing. Anytime, and I actually don't know the answer to this, but oftentimes bush training is done where you have a lot of wind. Keeping it lower to the ground gives the vine a little more stability. And also if there's an area where you have a dramatic diurnal shift where the nights are warm, I mean the days are warm, but the nights are actually cold. That bush training, keeps the vines a little warmer, keeps the grapes a little warmer because they're a little closer to the ground. And but for the most part, these are very traditional farming methods. But so this is where Craven is sourcing their fruit. It's about 3 miles from False Bay, and not unfortunately not a pretty day that they took the picture, but nonetheless, probably a storm coming in from the ocean. But bush trained, the soil here, again because it's about 3 miles to the ocean, almost like beach sand, seriously decomposed granite, and which again provides great drainage, uh, imparts a minerality to the wine, keeps those. I mean, typically when you have high mineral content in the soil, you do see a little bit brighter acid, a little more that you'll get brighter fruit flavors. So this is really a beautiful place for this grape to grow. But yeah, so this is I want to say Mick Craven, and his wife farm this area. She is South African and he is from Australia. But they are very committed to minimal intervention. Their farms, again, because they are in the floral kingdom, they have to be very sensitive. So they are organic. They don't use any artificial pesticides or herbicides. They rely on cover crops, using native cover crops, so as not to disrupt the environment. But um, I was tasting with the winery a couple weeks back, and we had maybe six or seven wines from their portfolio, and this one was the one I think that kind of jumped out at its most. It was just really bright and beautiful. Yeah, I mean it smells like, I don't know, there's definitely cherries and raspberries, um, sort of a wet pebble kind of smell, uh, almost like a sandalwood or something in the background. But it just had so much expression and beautiful color, that nice bright raspberry color or cranberry color rather. Um, yeah, I mean, just a pop of acid, crushed red fruits. Yeah, a little bit of spice. Maybe there's a there's a chemical compound called rotundone that can show. Usually, it's a derivative of the grape, um, but can show up and it almost gives you a little bit. Sometimes it's black pepper, sometimes it's white pepper, but just a little crack of pepper in the background. But really, I mean, just a beautiful wine. It made me happy the day I tasted it. I hope you agree. Um, but yeah, so let's see. I don't know if I. Yep, that's it. Go back to. Actually, that's a good one. All right. So, um, yeah, South African wines definitely. I mean, again, there's a lot of diversity. Um, they do grow Cabernet and Merlot. Of course, they love their Pinotage, and the Pinotage, it really. I shouldn't pan it out right. I've just had so many that are really just not great. But when it is good, it's just a nice juicy little fruit bomb, and they are certainly proud of it. They love their Pinotage. But Rhone varietals are very popular. Stellenbosch does very well with Cabernet as well. I don't think I have any at the moment from South Africa, but great examples of Cab. And again, further south where it's a little bit cooler, you get that beautiful Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, and Pinot Noir, cool climate varietals. But no, I South Africa, it's a wonderful place. I I I wish it weren't so grueling to get there. And unfortunately, the rand has climbed. It used to be much less expensive to go there, but if you've not been, I highly encourage it. I always tell people, I mean, I didn't even get to all of the animals that you can see. I mean, it's kind of fun. I tell people, you got to go there for the wine because where else, might you be stalked by a leopard while you're walking through the vineyard? It's a thing, and you gotta watch. There's a viper called a puff adder that often likes to stay warm in the vines, and so yeah, and there the threat of death is always good. Keeps you on your toes. But no, just a spectacularly beautiful place. Again, the people, the culture is, I mean, it really is deep in many, many layers. I mean, you can get, from the Malay people, I mean, Cape Malay cuisine, sort of almost like Indian or Pakistani food, lots of use of curries, slow cooked meats, rice. And then you've got all the international foods. The Dutch have their own thing, but certainly it's been influenced by many other cultures. Delicious fish, amazing fish. But yeah, so I can't recommend it highly enough. But good stuff.
There's a question from someone asking confused about what kind of wine is this? I guess the one that you're sampling now.
Oh, so it is called Senso.
Senso.
Um, CINS. I'm sorry, CINSAUT,
I'm
and
I'm
it's a
sorry,
it's a
you were mentioning the Pinotage, and I didn't know whether this was also a Pinotage or not.
so no, no,
Okay, thank you.
no. One of Pinotage's parents is this. So Pinotage is a hybrid, a man-made hybrid, a crossing of Cinsault, this wine, this grape, and Pinot Noir.
Someone else asked earlier, they were assuming both of these wines should be chilled, served chilled.
So definitely on the white. I would also say the when Cinsault gets really cold, it kind of closes down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But the brightness, the juiciness of it, yeah, I probably would. I mean, like particularly, I mean this bottling, at least, I think could use a if it were in the low 50s, mid 50s, that'd probably be nice. And whenever, if you ever chill a wine down too much, and it kind of closes up. The only thing, all you have to do is just wait for it to warm.
Wait, yeah.
It'll come back.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, I would say, I mean, I mean, there's another tradition, another food way in South Africa called braai. And basically braai is just barbecuing. They love to barbecue. And so this would be something if you were having braai out in the backyard, usually wood fired, but grilling all sorts of different meats. I will say they're very, with even though there's a great diversity of animals in the area, um, they're, for the most part it's more like a deer kind of. I mean, it's not as gamey as venison, called springbok, but that's farmed. But there is. I mean, they when they are grilling, it is usually beef, lamb, things like that. No bush meat. They're outside of farm raised springbok. They're it's pretty much farm raised animals. But yeah, this chilled would be delicious with your braai, you know.
Someone asks, is there a standard rule about wines served chilled or room temperature? Like this kind we should
No,
always.
I mean, not really. I mean, you could, I mean, certainly white wines generally like chills more than red.
Mhm.
However, and I've said this before, for the most part in the United States, we drink our whites too warm. I mean, our reds too warm, and we drink our whites too cold. And so you'll know when the wine is too cold. I mean, when it's too when a red wine is too warm, you get more of the alcohol. You get sort of some pruny notes. You get things that I would argue are maybe distracting in the nose. Um, when it's too cold, it just simply doesn't taste like anything. It just tastes like chilled water.
Right.
It's fairly neutral. But I mean, I've had white wines that I put in the fridge and had to wait until they were really warmer than room temperature before I was tasting anything.
Mhm.
And I've had rosés do the same thing, where you expect a rosé to be, chilled out of the ice box and in your glass and sitting by the pool, and it just not all wine behaves that way. So for the most part, start out by chilling your whites and rosés, but and with red wine, I guess the rule on red wine would generally be the lower tannin level. So you would not chill, say, well, chill. You would want, like, if you were drinking Cabernet, for example, um, you would want it cool. You would not want it chilled. But a chillable red would be something that was probably fairly low in tannin, so it's not that astringency, and a little bit higher in acidity. So something that has brightness, a little more crispness. So this wine, I think, this Sanso would I think definitely, a nice a mild chill on it would certainly do some nice work, I think.
Someone, I think they're referring to this wine you're sampling now, there is very impressed by the long finish on that
Yeah,
wine.
I mean, and that is, I mean, that's I can't I can't put my finger on that because I mean there are things that I would think about. First of all, um, it does tell you that, I mean, this is a wine again made by nature, and when nature does that work, they're really it's just obvious. I mean, it seems like whatever happened, a human couldn't be as precise as that. And so I would say, not knowing anything about how that vineyard, this the really nerdy specifics on that, on how the wine was farmed and produced, I would say wherever it is, it's well suited to the grape because Sanso wants to be, it wants to be a little pretty. It wants to have some really expressive fruit. Maybe, I mean, my wine is warming up a little bit, and I'm getting like a little faint rose, maybe rose petal or something, a floral note. And that's elegance. Those aromas are just, they're just pretty. And so I would say that, whatever they're doing, this the I think I actually did read that they attributed the acidity to the granitic soil. I mean, it's a granitic sand. And that generally just means, well, if it's that, the vines have to go a little deeper into the ground. The vines have to struggle a little bit more, and struggle always makes great wine. But no, I would say, I mean, the quality of fruit in this glass is self-evident. I mean, whatever they did, these were not the seconds, this was not the B team. They really brought precision out of this wine. And yeah, we were tasting, I mean, this was the only straight Sanso that we tasted in their portfolio. There were a couple other sort of Rhone style blends, Grenache, Syrah, but this one, of all the ones that we tasted, this one was the one where it was like I went back to this one multiple times. And it's kind of like when you're taking a test, you want to go with your first instinct. And that was my first instinct, that this was just whatever it was doing, whatever had been done was something I was into.
Mhm. Someone just asked, what's the name of that beautiful vineyard in the photo?
Um, you know what? I actually don't know. I needed I stole this photo, trying to think if I can figure it out. Um, Rybik, maybe? Uh I stole this photo just because it was the best photo of both the surrounding areas and the the Dutch architecture. Because Stellenbosch, there's another neighboring town called Franschhoek, and another wine region, rather. Well, it's a town and a wine region called Franschhoek, and then another one called Pearl. And their Franschhoek and Stellenbosch probably have the most overt Dutch style architecture, but there are a lot of, I mean, I've been to a number of wineries in this region where, I mean, they're spectacular art galleries. I mean, they're the place that oh God, Delaire Graff, winery called Delaire Graff. They have a spectacular restaurant. It's closer, actually, Delaire Graff. So if you went back, kind of straight back from this winery here, just at the bottom of the foothills there, that's where Delaire Graff is located, and it just has this commanding view, but it's very modern in architecture. Um, but no, I mean, for the most part, vineyards have to go where they can, and you're not allowed to move the vineyards up the mountainside, because you're impacting the natural flora and fauna. So it has to kind of be historic farmland, and again, the Dutch have been farming the valley floors here for 400 years.
This person looked it up. She says it's the Zorgvliet Wine Estate.
Ah,
Zorgvliet.
huh, yeah. Well,
Zorgvliet.
they have a very beautiful location.
Yeah.
And they even have a lot of the wineries in this area are into agritourism, so there looks like a pool and some chaise lounges. So it's also probable that you can stay there.
Mhm.
There, I mean, again, another reason to go. They will show you a good time. They In fact, I know at Delaire Graph, I think it's a fairly, I mean, it might be a Relais and Chateau hotel. I've eaten lunch there. Somebody took us to lunch there. I've never I didn't pay the bill and I have not stayed there, but I gathered that it was not inexpensive. Uh but no, the accommodations in this area are pretty nice. I would certainly stay at this winery based on what I'm seeing in the picture.
Mhm. It is very, very beautiful. And I think I see a little blue, maybe there's a swimming pool and,
Yeah, yeah,
I can't do the thing to it like we do on our
right.
telephone.
No, well, and
Quite
and
lovely.
I the only downside is well, actually, I guess I've only been there during their fall. So it's always been pretty chilly to be in the pool. But yeah, I mean, the summers are definitely warm, and so a lot of
Mhm.
people have pools or head to the ocean, and I've been in the ocean, and the ocean is like, I mean, I was wearing a really thick wetsuit,
Mhm.
and I was still cold. That was, yeah, you can definitely cool off quickly.
Yeah.
Um, in fact, if along False Bay, you do have several colonies of penguins that are spectacular to go watch. So, again, another you can hit on a nice day trip. You can head from Cape Town down to the Cape of Good Hope. You definitely want to keep your eyes open for baboons. They will um, steal your car. They will steal your things. They're very savvy, but the Cape of Good Hope is wonderful. And then you drive about an hour or so away. You see the penguins,
Mhm.
and there are a couple little seaside villages that you can get some great meals
I bet.
overlooking the ocean. So yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Sounds wonderful. Shelley, speaking of the temperatures, Shelley asks if there's any climate change effect on the vineyards. In other words,
Oh,
has stuff
it,
been happening that's been unpleasant or helpful to the vineyards there?
so let's see, when was the last? I think the last time I was there was 2018, and I was there. I don't remember the exact date, but several months prior to my departing, um, there was. I mean, I saw it on our own news that Cape Town was going to have what they called Zero Day, the day where they truly ran out of water, and
Oh,
that. In fact, it might have even been a year in advance. So we watched this date creep closer and closer, knowing that we would be there on Zero Day. And it was actually a pretty amazing thing because, unfortunately, the president of South Africa at the time, Zuma, was not a good president. He didn't see the need to spend money on desalinization plants. Didn't need to see the reason for repairing reservoirs. So Zero Day moved along pretty quickly when we had. I mean, it is climate change. I mean, that's they where they would normally have water, they had none. And people have said that the government of South Africa did one of the most successful public awareness campaigns of any country ever, because in that year where they were staring down the barrel of literally running out of water, they changed their habits. And I was just stunned because I was talking to friends who live in Cape Town, and they said, it blew our mind. We literally would. I mean, it sounds weird, but people were freaking out. The uber wealthy were kind of the worst of them all because they were still watering their lawns. If you were
yeah.
caught doing that, they would literally destroy your plumbing system such that you could not do that. I mean, it was that serious of a thing. But the worst offenders were the people who were like, nah, I like my green grass. I'm going to keep it. But these friends of ours were saying, we would go, there would be these areas where there would be a natural spring coming out of the side of a mountain. And people would go and stand in line to collect water coming out of a pipe off of a rock wall. And the people in that line were both very well-to-do people and people from the townships. And they were standing in the same line, which a beautiful thing. I mean, they were struck by it. They were like, everybody, barring a few very wealthy people that didn't see the point, everybody participated in the campaign. And so actually by the time I was there, 0 day had stopped. They knew that they were going to make it because their reservoirs had been repaired and they were filling up. But no, climate change is very, very real. There are water collection sites all throughout this area. They in the townships, they've done a lot of work in the last 10 years, 15 years to really move a lot of the townships from, again, kind of, shanty towns to what look more like maybe military barracks, concrete cinder block buildings that are a little more durable to wind and rain and cold. But every one of those buildings has a solar water heater on the roof. And so they have these large tanks with solar reflectors, and that is, not only do you need to, retain your water, you also need to heat it, because electricity may not be an option. So there really is a lot of conservation. I remember that even though 0 day had not happened, and they were able to say we're not gonna have a 0 day. Every hotel I was in, if you went in, if it had a shower and a bathtub, the bathtub had no drain plug in it. They had removed all the drain plugs. And I had a sign in one. I mean, somewhere I have a picture of, it was a very artfully done laminated sticker inside of a shower enclosure to describe how to take basically a military shower. 2 minutes is what you were allotted, and turn it on, put the soap on, you turn it off, wash yourself, turn it back on, rinse. I mean, it was very specific to if you did it right, it was a 2-minute experience. But no, and that was really, people were really scared. I mean, every restaurant would say, we don't serve water unless you buy it by the liter bottle from another place. They would say you might get Pellegrino or something. Well, it's not their water, so they could sell you that water, but it was crazy. But yes, this is an area that's seen a lot of climate change. They don't actually, like I mentioned earlier, they don't actually know why the great white, I mean the killer whales are migrating down to an area where they've not been. I mean, the reason I was swimming around in the bay is we were watching great white sharks in a cage in the water, and those sharks aren't there anymore. Maybe it's a change in where the food is, but those killer whales have not been generally residents of False Bay until the last 10 years or so. So yeah, climate change is definitely in it. For grape growing, the good thing is, I mean, you saw a lot of these vines are not irrigated. So grape growers like to have their vines dependent on themselves. And so these old bush trained vines, their vines are 30 feet in the ground. The roots are gonna suck out the water. So probably the fact that dry farming is a tradition anyway, that probably did help them during the extreme drought that they were experiencing around 2018.
That's amazing. Well, we're going to have to hope that the aquifer in Kansas, those people take some notes and learn a little bit about how to conserve water, because we sure don't want to have a 0 day here. But
yeah, that was I mean, that was a weird thing to think, like a city I mean, I don't know comparable size. I mean, it might be San Francisco. I mean, a major metropolitan city was gonna where the taps were bone dry.
Wow.
That was freaky. But
That's wonderful. Well, we're getting several thank yous. We are a few minutes over, but we're getting a lot of thank yous for a great
oh, my
tour
pleasure.
of South Africa. Here's a question. Do they water new vines for a period after planting? I
They
would
do. They do.
think so.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, they will run. Usually it's a couple years that they will they don't want the vines to get accustomed to it. But yeah, for young vines, couple years
Yeah.
they will actually run irrigation lines just to
Get 'em-
I
get
mean
'em
it's
established.
drip irrigation, yeah, just to establish them, but then they shut it off because they want the vines to keep going.
Yeah, well, as much as we love golf, we can not be watering those golf courses for a while.
Yeah, yeah,
Let them go. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And speaking of letting go, I'm going to let you all go. And I thank you so much, Steve, for
Oh, my
dashing in at
pleasure.
the last minute with no link, apparently.
Oh no, all good. All good.
We pulled it together. I hope you
Yes.
have a good day in your yard. Thank you for sharing
Okay.
all those lovely wines with us and your usual amazing expertise. And we'll see you next time. What are we going to be? Any idea where we'll be touring to next
I
year?
don't.
Or next
I don't. I
next
mean,
month?
this one, the good thing is we're tasting a lot of wine because new wine is coming in at this time of year. So I mean, this was really I had tasted this Craven and really, really liked it and thought that would be a great opportunity. So I don't know, but I would
We'll find
imagine
it.
I'll have some juice will pop in here in the next couple weeks that we'll do.
Something will happen, and who knows what the tariffs will be doing. But until then, until then,
Yes,
we'll muddle through somehow, and we'll see you next time. And thank you everybody for coming. It was
thank
lovely
you.
to see you all, and enjoy the springtime.
Absolutely. Be
Bye.
well.
Bye-bye.